Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the ETDM process webinar. My name is Dean Rogers, the Technology Resources Coordinator for the Office of Environmental Management. We had a pretty rough hurricane season. This was postponed a couple of times, but I'm happy that we're getting this webinar going today. Today I'll be providing an introduction to the ETDM process with a focus on the district's tasks. Before we get started, let's go over some housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the OEM training website. This webinar summarizes procedures detailed in the ETDM manual, which is also found on our OEM website. Everyone is currently muted on the webinar, but please use the chat box if you have any questions. We'll pause throughout the webinar to answer any that you have. Also, if other people are in the room with you, please list their names in the chat box so everyone can get credit. We'll also be using this webinar as a basis for a new CBT, which we'll be adding to the learning curve for FDOT staff. Here are the topics we'll be going over today. We'll start with an overview and then go into more detail about key steps in the ETDM process, pre-screening, planning, and programming screens, the alternative corridor evaluation or ACE process, and advancing projects from the ETDM process to the project development and environment or PD&E phase. First, the overview. The information we'll go over here is detailed in Chapter 2 of the ETDM manual. I'll show you where to find that in a couple of slides here in a bit. So, what is ETDM? The Efficient Transportation Decision-Making Process, or ETDM, is our procedure for incorporating environmental considerations early in transportation planning to better inform project delivery. During ETDM, we start looking at potential environmental impacts and ask for input from agencies and the public. The process helps to determine the feasibility of proposed projects, allows for early identification of potential avoidance, minimization, and mitigation opportunities, focuses the issue to be addressed during PD&E, create information and documentation which may be advanced in the PD&E phase, and provide appropriate issue resolution mechanisms during planning. The ETDM process diagram here gives an overview of this process. You can see there are two screens that feed into the PD&E phase, the planning and the programming screen. These provide opportunities for our partner agencies to comment on the qualifying projects. The agencies participate in the ETDM process on an Environmental Technical Advisory Team, or ETAT, formed in each district. Community coordination also begins during this time, usually through local governments, MPO technical advisory committees, and other interested groups. You can find requirements of the process in two main sources, the FDOT ETDM manual and the agreements with our partner agencies. The manual details the standard operating procedures for the process. The agreements describe the interaction between FDOT and the agencies during the ETDM process that results in improvements to transportation decisions, protection of the natural and human environments, efficiency and cost savings, early input by the agencies in transportation planning. The manual and the agreements are available on the OEM website shown here. There's a link. So key components. I want to go over these key components of the ETDM process, the screening projects, ETDM coordination, ETAT review of potential effects, the environmental screening tool, or EST, and the ETDM issue resolution process. So first we'll look at the planning screen, which occurs during the development of the Long Range Transportation Plan, or LRTP, where we're looking for critical flaws in cost and impacts. So if you look at it this way, we're looking to see if a project is going to be $10 million or is it going to be $100 million. The programming screen occurs when projects are prioritized for the 5-year work program, and the programming screen helps us identify considerations that may affect the PD&E study and focus the scope of work. So we're looking for information that can help with the PD&E study down the road. During these screening events, the agencies provide comments about potential effects to the resources under their jurisdiction. For example, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service provides comments about potential effects to protected species and habitat. The environmental resource considerations in ETDM are the same ones we study in more detail during PD&E. The information we receive in the ETDM process helps us focus our PD&E study. More than 30 state, federal, and local agencies and tribal governments compose the ETAT, and these participants are available to help during the entire project delivery process and serve as the main point of contact to work through any issues. ETAT review of potential effects. In general, when the ETAT are reviewing the projects during a screening event, they identify resources and level of importance. So they're looking at the resources that are within their purview. They access potential effects, both direct and indirect. They may also provide recommendations for further study of cumulative effects. And they identify potential severity of effects by assigning a degree of effect and providing detailed comments. The environmental screening tool. FDOT uses the environmental screening tool to communicate project information and gather comments from the ETAT. The EST is a web-based application that uses the Florida Geographic Data Library, or FGDL, at the University of Florida's Geoplan Center. Project team members and the ETAT members access the EST through an internal secure site, which is password protected to allow updates to the database. Other stakeholders may view the information on the read-only ETDM public access site. FDOT and the MPO TPOs enter information into the EST to advance consideration of environmental effects on their qualifying transportation projects. ETAT representatives provide new and updated GIS data to the FGDL for use within the EST as available. The environmental screening tool performs standardized GIS analyses and queries using the information supplied by ETAT members and contained in the FGDL. It integrates data pertinent to natural, physical, cultural, and community resources and transportation programs into a standardized format, analyzes GIS data within project buffers to support ETAT member commentary, and provides a platform for dissemination of information among ETAT representatives and the public, and provides storage and access to the ETAT reviews. The EST performs these standard GIS analyses and queries using the information supplied by ETAT members and contained in the FGDL. It integrates data pertinent to the natural, physical, and cultural, and community resources and transportation programs into a standardized format. Analyzes GIS data within project buffers to support ETAT member commentary, and provides a platform for dissemination of information among ETAT representatives and the public. Provides storage and access to ETAT reviews. So the site gives us a centralized location for all partners to look at projects and understand what's going on with them and to easily access the information. The ETDM issue resolution process. Within ETDM, we have defined issue resolution processes that seeks to find mutually agreeable solutions that address a resource concern, whether it's natural, physical, social, or cultural, while meeting the transportation need. A strong commitment exists among the partners in the ETDM process to resolve issues within the ETAT. That was well formulated in the MOU that I showed you at the beginning of the webinar. All the agencies agree to work together in the process. Prior to evaluating them to higher level management, Potential disputes should be addressed as early as possible to make the best use of agency skills and resources. An ETAP member may identify a potential issue during the planning or the programming screen. And initially, the ETDM coordinator works with the Office of Environmental Management and the appropriate ETAP representatives to informally resolve the disputed issue at the agency staff level before elevating the discussion to the formal issue resolution process. Planning to inform NEPA. The ETDM process is also FDOT's link between planning and the Federal National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA process. We are able to use the ETDM process to develop and adopt planning products for the NEPA study. The screening events provide the necessary opportunities for agency and public input to define the project purpose and need, develop the project scope, and determine the class of action. Furthermore, we are able to review and eliminate alternatives using our ACE process, or Alternative Corridor Evaluation, which may be conducted during ETDM. ETDM and the NEPA Assignment Program. In December of 2016, FDOT assumed Federal Highways responsibilities for all NEPA actions for highway projects on the state highway system and the local agency program, or LAP, projects off the state highway system in Florida. Under this program, we continue to comply with applicable laws, regulations, policies, and guidance. And the responsibilities assumed by FOT are administered by the Office of Environmental Management. For the ETDM process, this means that OEM acts as the lead federal agency for highway projects. ETDM approvals are handled by OEM. The OEM staff review the following items and provide information and approval on purpose and need, the methodology memorandum for the alternative corridor evaluation, referred to as ACE, and the ACER, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute, eliminated alternatives, participating and cooperating agencies, the class of action, and the adoption of planning products. OEM pre-screening review. Before the ETDM coordinator distributes the notification starting the screening event for the planning or the programming, OEM staff reviews the following drafts. The preliminary environmental discussion, which is what the department knows about a project before it goes out. The DOT wants to let the ETAP members know what they know so that they don't have to go over that information. And they just can tell us what we don't know. Also, the project description are reviewed, as well as the purpose and need. This independent OEM review by the assigned project delivery coordinator occurs after the district performs its QC of project information and the project status is set to OEM QA/QC before the beginning of the screening event. During the screening event, OEM does not comment as an ETAP member. Instead, this is where they would indicate their approval or concurrence as indicated during pre-screening reviews. So much of the information we've covered in this overview is from Chapter 2 of the ETDM manual, and you can find more info there. Next, we'll go into more details about activities that occur during various steps in the process. So if you have any questions, please enter them in the chat box. All right.
No questions right now, Dean.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. I'll continue. So pre-screening coordination and review. In this section, I will discuss OEM's responsibilities prior to planning and programming screens, and what information the districts provide, and what OEM reviewers are responsible for. Before each screening event, either a planning or a programming screen, the district identifies qualifying projects and whether there will be federal involvement, plans the project screening release schedule, and develops project information. and enters all that information into the EST. So let's go into these items in a little more detail. Identifying qualifying projects. ETDM projects may originate from a variety of FDOT, MPO, TPO, or local government programs and plans, such as the SIS, a statewide bridge replacement program, transportation needs plan, master plans, corridor plans, the TIP, the long-range transportation plan, local government comprehensive plans, and the capital improvement programs. The project sponsor, FDOT, or the MPO, TPO selects qualifying projects and then enters the projects into the EST. The ETDM process applies to certain types of state and federal transportation projects that meet additional conditions described in this section. To determine whether a project must complete the ETDM process, the project sponsor first considers the project type. Qualifying project types include certain roadway and public transportation projects. So qualifying project types include additional through lanes which add capacity to an existing road, a new roadway, freeway, or expressway, a highway which provides access to a new area, new or reconstructed arterial highway, addition of interchanges or major interchange modifications to a completed freeway or expressway based on coordination with federal highway, a new bridge which provides new access to an area or a bridge replacement. So simply repaving and not changing the footprint of a road does not qualify for ETDM. But if there are potential impacts from a transportation project and they fit this criteria, they will be screened. Qualifying public transportation projects include major capital improvements, including intermodal centers, rail and transit centers, rail, new commuter rail, passenger rail, or new freight rail extending beyond current footprints, transit, new facility, new terminal, new start, small start project extending beyond current footprint, a new seaport, airport, or non-passenger rail project on the SIS. So after determining the qualifying project type, the project sponsor uses the ETDM screening matrix for qualifying projects to consider whether screening is required based on the transportation system, potential funding sources, and the responsible agency. For example, the agency required to meet federal, state, and other applicable requirements. So based on the list of projects selected for planning or programming screen, the FDOT ETDM coordinators and project managers work with the appropriate staff to develop a 12-month ETDM screening schedule. This schedule identifies the projects, the type of screening, and the anticipated screening release date for each project. Projects undergoing the ACE process should also be identified because they require additional activities which are discussed in Chapter 3 and 4 of the ETDM manual. FDOT tracks ETDM work as part of the FDOT production schedule. The project team should work with project schedulers to use the required project schedule and management, or PSM codes, listed on the ETDM project schedule and management codes matrix. It's important to coordinate schedules with OEM and the ETAT to distribute the workload evenly. For each qualifying project, the district develops the project information, enters it into the EST, and reviews the information for completeness and accuracy. For federal highway projects under NEPA assignment, FDOT OEM is identified as the lead agency. So after NEPA assignment, it's no longer federal highway, it is FDOT's Office of Environmental Management. Developing the purpose and need. The project purpose should define the transportation problem to be solved, not be a statement of a solution. Provide data to support the problem statement, and set the stage for consideration of the alternatives. Must not be so specific as to reverse engineer a solution. The need for the project provides a rationale for pursuing the action. The need must consist of factual, objective descriptions of the specific transportation problem with a summary of the data and analysis that supports the conclusion that there is a problem requiring action. The need must be justified by quantified data. For example, vehicle miles of travel speeds, the time of day characteristics, current and project levels of service, crash rates, and/or road and construction deficiencies should be used as appropriate. The PD&E Manual, Part 2, Chapter 1, Project Description and Purpose and Need, provides instructions about what should be included in the explanation of project need. It is important that the discussion is concise and should only include the elements applicable to the project. To summarize, here are some helpful tips to support the review. Project purpose and need should be concise. The purpose should be no more than 1 or 2 paragraphs. The purpose identifies the transportation problems and guides the range of alternatives that will be developed and considered in response to the established need. The purpose should be broad enough to encompass a reasonable range of alternatives, but not be so broad that it encompasses every possible alternative. On the other hand, it should not be so narrow as to preclude a range of alternatives that could reasonably meet the defined objectives or restrictive decision makers' flexibility in resolving conflicting interests. The need for the project provides the rationale for how the project addresses the problems, issues, and concerns identified in the purpose and explains the underlying causes of those problems. The need serves as the foundation for the proposed project and provides the principal information upon which the no-action alternative discussion is based. So here we look at, we're looking to identify a project name, name of cities and counties, name of planning organizations, limits of the proposed project, such as the local termini and length, description of the existing or general characterizations of the new facility, and descriptions of proposed improvements. So environmental review process and federal eligibility. Here we're looking at a screenshot within the environmental screening tool where it's going to be indicated which environmental review process will be used, whether it's state or federal highway. This hasn't changed under a NEPA assignment except that OEM are the reviewers for federal projects instead of federal highway. So again, under NEPA assignment, OEM is the lead agency. And within a form here where we're looking at designating the lead agency, agency roles in PD&E, that is the option. Developing a PED. The district also develops the preliminary environmental discussion, which provides the environmental fact sheet and advance notification packages, informs reviewing agencies and the public of our understanding of potential environmental issues on a proposed project, FDOT providing project context, describes the anticipated levels of project involvement with the resources, communicates what FDOT knows relative to the specific project, alternative, or issue. So we're looking at what DOT knows about a project before it goes to screening. Again, that's so that the ETAT doesn't have to cover what we already know. The PED should identify resources we know about or whether we might come in contact with them. Coordination requirements, technical studies, anticipated permits. This information helps the ETAT understand what we already know so that they can provide add value comments focusing on what we don't know. They should share information, not indicate a finding, assess potential environmental effects, and share FDOT's intent to address or evaluate them as the project advances. Communicate what is known, provide review agencies with context to aid them in providing actionable comments, ask reviewing agencies to respond to FDOT, understanding the agencies confirm or clarify. So as the district prepares their project information and screening schedules, they begin coordinating with the OEM project delivery coordinators. After they complete their internal QA/QC, they use the EST to send a notification to OEM when the project information is ready for OEM's pre-screening review. At that time, the OEM project delivery coordinator logs onto the EST to review the information provided. So as the districts prepare the project information and screening schedules, they begin coordinating with OEM project delivery coordinators. After they complete their internal QA/QC, they use the EST and send a notification to OEM when the project information is ready for OEM's pre-screening review. We're looking at a screenshot from the tool, update project status, and here it's indicated that the project is an OEM review. They'll go in and look at information on it, and they will either approve or send back for more information. OEM pre-screening review, again, they're looking to become familiar with the project, assess resource data and maps, and coordinate with OEM subject matter experts about potential resource issues, and provide comments to the districts. OEM project delivery coordinators are required to review and comment on project description, the purpose and need, and the PED. So as soon as the OEM reviewer approves the information, the status changes to OEM approved for screening, and district ETDM coordination team is sent a notification. As soon as it's approved, it's good to go. We don't need to wait until the end of the review period. So we have 14 days for that, but certainly we want to get that done as soon as we can and not wait that entire 14 days. So that's a time savings. The district will see OEM's comments in a report shown here. This report can only be accessed by FDOT staff and their consultants who have access to draft project information. If needed, the district updates the project information and sends it back to OEM for review again. So we're looking to provide our feedback and get that information to our districts, and then the districts will provide us and make those changes. So, any other questions out there so far?
Yes, we actually have a few questions right now. The first one is from Allison, and she asks, can you give an example when a project undergoes a planning versus a programming screen? Also, does FDOT have to initiate the ETDM project regardless of origin, LRTP, local jurisdiction, etc.? All the projects we have reviewed have been initiated by the department. Thank you. So this on the MPO.
Let's see here. I'm trying to. Can you read the first one again, Ruth? The chat box is not.
Yeah, can you give an example when a project undergoes a planning versus a programming screen?
So we're looking at long-range transportation planning and inclusion into that planning product. So if a project is a long ways out, we'll do a planning screen when we're looking at the feasibility of a project. It has not been identified to be in the 5-year work program. So
not all projects go through a planning screen. Any of the projects that have been identified as a priority in a work program have to go through the programming screen, but we don't often know about things early enough to do the planning screen. And a lot of it is in coordination with the NPO and with the ETDM district coordinator to determine whether a project will go through the planning screen. And as far as local jurisdictions, FDOT does not typically screen local projects through the ETDM. It's at the local government's request, they can talk to the ETDM coordinator at their district about that. There's a chart and a whole section in the ETDM manual in Chapter 2 that goes into a lot more detail about the requirements, because there's specific qualifying information in that section to help with that. And then the next question was, also, our agency uses the AOI tool within ETDM quite a bit. We wanted you to know we really appreciate having access to this for land use and transportation planning projects. Are there any? Oh, that was the end of that one. So that's great.
Yeah, that is.
That's great to hear. Thank you. And then the next question is from Tony Griffin. She's asking, are there any plans to offer purpose and need training? FHWA out of DC has a really good class that they come to the site and deliver. There's a need for people to learn how to develop this.
I certainly think it would be a great idea. We'll go back to management and discuss that. And what do you think, Ruth?
Yeah, I think that would be a great offering.
Absolutely.
And part of we do have more detailed training on how to enter information into the ESP and things like that, and we can get some more guidance incorporated into that training as well.
Absolutely. Any other
question is, yeah, there's a couple more. Who has access to ETDM? Is there a link in OIT Enterprise Application Portal on the InfoNet for view only?
We have a public site to look at project information for finalized products. So the ETDM public site is available to anyone.
Oh, and Gwen is helping us out on that first question. She mentioned that we usually do planning screens on new alignment projects, which is a great example. Thank you, Gwen. I was having a little bit of a brain confusion there, trying to think of an example. But that's a perfect example. A new alignment where a new road is being considered, that would be an excellent reason to use the planning screen.
All right.
And she also says we don't get much out of doing it on widening, and that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, I will continue on. So lesson 3, ETDM planning screens. So wanted to say that in chapter 3 of the ETDM manual, that's where you'll find our guidance on the ETDM planning screens. The planning screens occur when an MPO, TPO, or FDOT considers projects for inclusion or prioritization within the cost feasible element of a long-range transportation plan. This illustration shows how the planning screen fits within the context of the transportation planning process. The planning screen includes steps for preparing a project for review, conducting that review, and responding to the comments, and preparing a planning screen summary report. So all the findings from that planning screen are identified in that summary report. We've already discussed preparing a project for review, so let's talk about what happens during and after a screening event. District's tasks. The district will send the notification to the ETAT and OEM, obtain the understanding of the purpose and need from the OEM through the environmental screening tool. They will monitor ETAT comments, coordinate and prepare responses to the ETAT comments, and develop the summary report, coordinating with OEM as needed. So this example illustrates the content expected in the summary report. So we'll kind of break down some of these in the next few slides. So it provides FDOT's understanding of resource involvement. So first, the district provides FDOT's understanding of resources and their involvement. Next, the ETDM coordinator responds specifically to ETAC comments. And finally, provides a degree of effect and rationale for their decision. So in this example, due to the proximity of the North Fork of the New River and potential of impacting EFH, a summary degree of effect of moderate has been assigned to wetlands. So all of the issue areas will have these degrees of effect added to them. So OEM has the following tasks. So that's the Office of Environmental Management and their project delivery coordinators. They review planning screen notifications, or they receive planning screen notifications, and indicate understanding of the purpose and need, monitor ETAC comments. OEM and district reviewers receive notification when an agency submits a substantial or potential dispute degree of effect. And OEM will not comment on issues during the screening event. They coordinate with the districts during the planning screen as needed and assist in developing responses to ETAC comments or summary degrees of effect. And they provide technical support as needed and become familiar with focused project issue areas. OEM indicates understanding during a planning screen. They will indicate this understanding within the environmental screening tool. You can see here's an example. So they'll either click understood or not understood and then provide comments. OEM staff will also be monitoring ETAC comments and will coordinate with the district on responses as needed. And do we have any further comments at this point, Ruth? Or questions?
No, no more questions right now.
Okay. So I want to go into the ETDM programming screen and see what the differences are between our planning and our programming. In this section, we'll discuss the activities specific to a programming screen. More details are available in Chapter 4 of the ETDM manual. So here's an overview of the programming screen. Like the planning screen, it includes preparation activities and a 45-day screening event and follow-up activities. So let's go into more details about the tasks that are specific to the programming screen. As with the planning screen, OEM staff provides comments to the districts about the purpose and need before the screening event. However, instead of just indicating an understanding, as they did in the planning screen, during the programming screen, OEM reviews indicate their acceptance. This allows the purpose and need to be used in the PD&E study. So that's one of the differences there. It's not just a understood or not understood. They are accepting or not accepting and providing comment. Similar to the planning screen, they also monitor ETAC comments and to become familiar with the issues. So district tasks after the programming screen review. So tasks after the ETAC review are much different than with the planning screen. So we'll look a little closer at that. Notice how the project team is identifying technical studies and permits needed at this time. They also review requests and sending recommendations to OEM about participating and cooperating agencies. Alternatives may also be eliminated during this time in a planning screen, and these activities help to identify the appropriate class of action and narrow the scope of the PD&E study. Notice that the development of the programming screen summary report occurs in 2 steps. First, the publishing of the results of the screening event similar to that report in the planning screen, and then the republishing of it after the class of action has been determined. Note that this does not need to happen immediately if more evaluation is needed in order to make that determination. So the class of action can be defined in the programming screen. but it can also be determined at a later date if more study is needed. So after the programming screen, the district will use the environmental screening tool to make recommendations, and OEM staff will review and provide approval for the following items: the participating and cooperating agencies, the eliminated alternatives, the class of action, and the adoption of planning products. So do we have any more questions, Ruth?
Not at this time.
Okay. So ACE process and ETDM. We're going to look at the ACE process and get more details. The ACE process may occur during either the planning or the programming screen. You can find these figures in the Chapter 3 or 4 of the ETDM manual. In general, the agencies complete an ETAT review of the project, providing comments or on alternatives, assisting in the development of the methodology memorandum, or MM, which establishes the criteria for evaluating the alternatives and identifying means by which alternatives can be eliminated. The MM is reviewed by ETAT and accepted by the lead federal agency. The ACE report, or ACER, documents the results of applying the MM and establish criteria for the alternatives. OEM staff reviews the following items and provide approval and/or concurrence during ACE. Again, the MM and the ACER, eliminated alternatives, and note that cooperating agencies must concur with eliminated alternatives. So any more questions, Ruth? I don't see any. So finally, let's summarize what happens when moving a project from the ETDM programming screen to PD&E. The information introduced here is found in Chapter 5 of our ETDM manual. So information from the final programming screen summary report provides information to assist with the transition to the PD&E phase. So we're looking at purpose and need, class of action, the cooperating and participating agencies. We're looking at any technical studies, or we're looking at technical studies that we've learned from our screening event that we don't need to do. Identified future coordination activities, recommendations for subsequent project phases, and results of planning studies that may support the PD&E study. Information from the screening events can be used to support the PD&E study within 5 years of the publication date. So all planning products incorporated in the NEPA process must follow the conditions of 23 U.S. Code 168. The ACE process and ETDM screenings may produce planning products identified in 23 United States Code 168. For the list of conditions and planning products, see the ETDM Manual Chapter 4 and Section 4.7, Linking Planning and Environmental Review. So handling unresolved issues. If there are unresolved issues for FHWA projects undergoing NEPA review, then the issue resolution process will be applicable. The federal highway process establishes a series of forums for issues to be resolved. If not resolved, issues are advanced to these forums. The process also includes potential financial penalties for unexcused delays by participating agencies. The outcome of these activities should be recorded in the final PD&E document and communicated to the applicable ETAT member. All right, any other questions?
No questions, but Gwen did add a comment just to reiterate that the screening helps us to develop the project scope.
Absolutely. Very good point.
Are there any other questions, anybody?
I don't see any. So
Okay, thank you.
I want to thank you all for joining the webinar. We have recorded this, and we will be putting this on our training website along with our other ETDM training videos.
We just did get a comment. Dean, will they have a chance to provide feedback on this session?
Absolutely. We could, if you could provide any feedback to either Pete or I on here. And Ruth, does webinar automatically produce a poll for feedback?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't remember if all the people that attended automatically get that survey or not.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm not sure
So
either.
if you don't get an email from the GoToWebinar, then sending feedback to Pete or Dean would be the best option.
Yep. And if there aren't any other questions, then that'll conclude our webinar.
And a couple people have said that they have not seen one before when they're doing these, so they're probably not set up to send out it afterwards.
Yeah, just provide any feedback to us located here, our ETDM process contacts.
Or the help desk also, that help@flaetat.org.
Right. And just to remind everyone that there's a wealth of information on our website, on the OEM website. We have, let me go back to that previous screen. We have an entire...
And I do know that everybody who's registered does get an email with letting them know that the recording is posted, and that would also have information on how to get feedback back.
Okay, great. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I appreciate everybody joining us today, and I hope you all have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.